Jim, what's the update from the National Hurricane Center?
Yeah, the update just coming in here, changing the track a little bit here, and want to break this down here because you look at this and a lot of people tend to really focus on the center of that track. Really important to not do that, and keep in mind that even the western periphery could be a possible point of this storm, or the eastern periphery could be a possible point of this storm. But you can break down model by model and see exactly which one it is favoring, and we go through that and you notice, here we go, the concentration, very strong belief with this being an area around Cuba sometime Friday night into early Saturday morning. But beyond that, look what happens. We have a high concentration now shifting more towards eastern Florida. In fact, when you break this down based on these models, I would even venture to say this could skirt the coast of Florida, potentially making the hardest point a second impact on portions of the Bahamas, and then go somewhere north in towards parts of Georgia into the Carolinas early next week. So significant variations between all of that. Here's where we stand right now with one of the strongest hurricanes on record into the Atlantic Ocean. Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, 100,000 people in the direct path of this storm that has gusts well over 200 miles per hour. And with the storm surge, of course, in islands that are essentially as flat as they come, just sandy beaches and very little elevation change, we know most of these areas that would be directly impacted by such a storm would be uninhabitable for a period of weeks, if not months. So breaking down this further, looking at the American model and also the European model, the European in blue, American coming in red, notice the incredible confidence in where this would be going into Friday and Saturday, directly on top of one another. So we think parts of Cuba certainly could be in line here for this storm system, but at the turn, still a lot of confidence in here. So this has changed in the last 24 hours. This time yesterday, we were telling you one model was taking it back towards western Florida. Another one wanted to center towards the east. Continue this going from Sunday into Monday, just little difference on timing of where it would be. But again, same general location, potentially favoring the eastern side. And leave you with this here, looking at the specific models under the umbrella of those models. And again, high concentration shifting it to the east. So this could potentially put parts of eastern Florida on the outer bands of this and take it up towards the Carolinas.
Today, county officials are already advising residents living in low-lying areas to start evacuating on Wednesday. Everyone should be following the direction of local officials regarding voluntary and mandatory evacuations. If there is an evacuation order in your area, please follow it. I cannot stress it enough. If there's evacuation ordered, follow it. Remember, we can rebuild your home, but we cannot rebuild your life. Florida Keys Hospital evacuation. We have pre-positioned air assets from the North Carolina National Guard to begin hospital evacuations in the Florida Keys. These evacuations will begin tomorrow. Regarding shelters, we're working hand in hand with the counties to ensure that shelters are available. There's absolutely no reason for anyone not to evacuate if you are ordered to do so. Shelters will be available, and you should follow the directions of your local officials to go to the shelter that fits your needs. The state is stationing supplies such as meals, shelter support trailers, and water at the State Logistics Resource Center in Orlando for deployment as needed. The state is also establishing local points of contact with volunteer organizations to coordinate sheltering and feeding operations. The American Red Cross has also established a disaster relief operation in Orlando.
In Puerto Rico have been getting ready for Hurricane Irma for a couple of days, and rightfully so, because this is just a monster storm, and it really hasn't changed much. About 185 mile an hour sustained wind close to the center of the storm, Category 5 hurricane. That pressure at about 914 millibars, very, very low. This is the strongest hurricane that there's ever been in the Atlantic Basin outside of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. So very, very serious stuff. Now, parts of the northern Leeward Islands are getting absolutely hammered right now. Overnight, Barbuda appears to have taken a direct hit, and pretty much as we speak, Anguilla and St. Martin and St. Bart's are taking direct hits as well, okay? So I think we're going to find tremendous destruction in those areas. We've got hurricane warnings that are in effect as far west as the Turks and Caicos, parts of the Bahamas. You've got Puerto Rico, the northern part of the Dominican Republic, also with hurricane warnings. Now, if there is anything good about this storm, as far as Puerto Rico and Hispaniola goes, it's that it appears the direct center of the storm will probably pass a little bit north of the islands. That's the most likely scenario, but it's still going to be a bad storm for all of those people. Now, as far as the southeastern United States goes, keep in mind with the cone of uncertainty here, this is telling us where could the center of the storm go? I know a lot of people look at this and think, oh my gosh, Florida's directly in the middle. That means it's for sure going to be a direct hit. That's not the case. It is possible that you could get a direct hit. It's possible it could go a little bit east of Florida. Possible it could go a little bit west. Already have mandatory evacuations that are underway in the Keys.
That you need to know. First of all, Irma is extremely dangerous. It is one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record. It is working its way here toward the northern Leeward Islands. What is steering it? This is number 2. We've got a big area of high pressure that is steering it westward, but eventually it's going to be taking a turn to the north, and that is determined by this jet stream that's here in the eastern U.S. How deep does it go? What is the timing of that? All of that's going to play into where Irma heads. As far as the winds, we've got a wind field now that is expanding. We have hurricane force winds that are out 60 miles. We have tropical storm force winds that expand outward from the center nearly 200 miles. So wind is going to cause potentially catastrophic damage in numerous areas. And then number 4, we are looking at some very heavy rainfall coming in. Across these islands, we're very concerned about flooding and mudslides, but that heavy rain threat is going to continue. As we look toward Cuba, we could see some real damage coming in here. Mudslides, certainly a possibility, and then we'll be following Florida with heavy rain in the days to come.
People in the southeast, including, of course, Florida, have been watching Hurricane Irma over the last couple of days. A lot of people have been preparing. Great job to the people that are preparing, because that's certainly what you should be doing. But I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion in a lot of people's heads that, hey, this is going to be a huge, powerful hurricane that is definitely going to hit Miami directly. I just want to explain that there's still actually a lot of different possibilities as to what this storm could do. This is the cone of uncertainty, all right? And it can be really confusing to a lot of people. I know you see Florida directly in the middle of it, and a lot of people see this and think that that means it's going to be a direct hit in Florida for sure. Not the case. What this is actually showing us is the cone of uncertainty as to where the center of the storm could go. So the storm could go west of Florida. The storm could go east of Florida. Either way, Florida is going to be affected one way or another, but it also could be a direct hit. It could go across the peninsula, end up into the Gulf. It could kind of ride up the coast, kind of like a Matthew type of deal like what we had last year. And it could completely miss Florida and then end up being a problem for other parts of the southeast. That's why, you know, if you live in places like Jacksonville, Charleston, places like the Outer Banks, you've really got to watch this very closely. We still have a lot of different impacts that could happen from this storm. So Monroe County, Florida, already starting mandatory evacuations for visitors today. Miami, people with special needs will be evacuated there as well. Miami-Dade County, they've got basically advising residents in low-lying areas to start those evacuations.
Preparations well underway, looking at Miami, Florida, and the Florida Governor, Rick Scott, declared a state of emergency back on Monday for every county in Florida in advance of Hurricane Irma. We're going to be talking about some big impacts here as we go throughout the next several days throughout the Caribbean, and then down the line, we get toward the weekend, we are concerned about Florida more so. You can see how massive this storm is. Very, very intense, a major hurricane movement here off toward the west and the northwest, and more so late week. We're going to be talking about showers and thunderstorms, but this is preparation time more so before conditions really start to go downhill as we venture into Saturday and Saturday night. We can take this full screen more so. Notice how quiet it is off toward the north, but we'll start to see those conditions going downhill later on this weekend. In fact, the Miami Dolphins and Tampa Bay Buccaneers were scheduled to play 1 o'clock on Sunday at the Hard Rock Stadium, but the NFL has announced they will not play the game on Sunday. Other schools also have announced they're going to be monitoring the storm, rather, as they have athletic events. So something that they'll continue to monitor as well. In terms of impacts here, we're going to be talking about rainfall amounts that could be 4 to 8 inches, locally 12 inches of rainfall here as we go throughout the Florida Peninsula again Saturday night and into Sunday. But also notice where we're going to be looking at the wave action here. Very, very dangerous. Wave heights could be topping, again, 20 to even 25 feet. A very dangerous storm surge. It will be highly dependent on the exact track and just that coastal inundation. This continues into early week here, even on the west coast of Florida, as we'll have strong winds coming in around the backside. And more so, here's the track that we are going to be watching, but focus more so on the window of movement, as there are altering scenarios that bend this off toward the north as we venture into that late week and also weekend time frame. But again, looking at big impacts here for Florida, potential for hurricane force winds, damage, and flooding rains.